This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Well, our hearts are heavy today as we grapple with yesterday's devastating UPS cargo plane crash at Louisville's Muhammad Ali International Airport, home to UPS's massive Worldport hub. That's Metro Louisville's largest employer, over 26,000 employees. A lot of folks being affected by the crash of Flight 2976, a hulking MD-11 freighter loaded with packages bound for the world. Lifted off around 5:15 yesterday, and the plane was actually headed for Honolulu. But something went catastrophically wrong. As just seconds later, eyewitnesses and their videos videoed this jet banking sharply before it slammed into the ground just south of the runway and also there in an industrial area. In fact, this crash happened just less than 3 miles from where I'm sitting right now here on Fern Valley Road in our TV studios. And as of this morning, 9 people are dead, 11 injured. Actually, there were more injured. There were now 15, I guess, injured. 2 are in critical condition that we know of with serious burn issues, and they're being treated as critical care today. Others have been, the good news is, others have been released from the hospital, and at least 16 others are still missing. And so this morning, welcome to Kentucky's Voice. But, you know, our prayers this morning go out to those families who have lost loved ones, to those who are facing life-threatening injuries, hundreds of first responders, over 100 firefighters alone were fighting this blaze and battling this blaze through the night. And we had emergency medical personnel, paramedics, other first responders on the scene. A heroic job. And as the governor said last night in his press conference, considering some of the residential areas and more densely populated areas to the north, to the west of the airport, this could have been even worse, and it was bad enough. Obviously, you have seen the video there of the horrific crash, and we're going to get into this a little bit more today, but and what happened maybe. But the mayor of Louisville, Craig Greenberg, is going to be holding a press conference along with other officials from the airport, the emergency services, from the fire department that responded to this blaze, which was the Okolona Fire Department initially. And, of course, the National Transportation Safety Board has nearly 30 people on their way here to investigate this crash. It will be, of course, some time before we have an official response and statement about what happened and cause of this crash. But we'll know a lot more about it sooner than that official statement, I'm sure. Flames from this crash ignited a string of fires in an industrial corridor adjacent to the airport, forcing authorities to halt flight operations through the night. My understanding is that the airport has reopened at least some flights. Now, the problem here is that many flights were canceled yesterday, and so there's a backlog of flights. So if you're scheduled to fly today, the best thing to do is check with your airlines. But that plane that had crashed yesterday had already flown 2 other flights. But folks, this plane had 38,000 gallons of fuel on it. It was headed for Honolulu. It was fully loaded, almost 300 pounds, 220 pounds of that fuel. And when it crashed, it was just a massive ball of fire and blaze. And as the sun was coming up this morning and pictures were being taken, we were getting more indication of just how bad and just how big this crash is. Stay with us. I'll be joined by my co-hosts Bob and Zach Scott coming up in the next segment on Kentucky's Voice, and we'll also be going to the mayor's press conference whenever that begins. Stay with us here on Kentucky's Voice as we cover this tragic event and as we pray and think about those who have been directly affected today. We'll do that in the next segment.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Thanks for staying with us today here on Kentucky's Voice. A sad, tragic day for Louisville. The city's hurting. Many people have been affected by the crash of the UPS Flight 2976 yesterday afternoon, just about 5:15 p.m. Crashed just east of, or just west rather of I-65, south of the Louisville Airport in the industrial area. Businesses affected, people on the ground. Some people lost their lives, others severely injured and fighting for their lives. Louisville's Worldport is at the center of the hub and spoke system for UPS's air cargo network. They process about 2 million packages a day. I want to bring in our co-host, Bob and Zach Scott. Thanks, guys, for joining us here this morning as we wait for a press conference with Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg and others who are going to be speaking that have been involved in this already. But, UPS, this is our largest employer in Louisville, 26,000 employees, one of our largest in Kentucky. And this is everybody knows somebody who works at UPS. And so, what are you guys thinking this morning? I know, Bob, you have a lot of friends that have worked out there and been in touch with folks, talking to them. Yeah. What are you hearing about this, and what is the reaction?
It's everybody's devastated by it. I was talking to you earlier, Jim, and it really is true. Louisville has often been called the littlest big city in the country. Just because everybody seems to know someone, and there's that 6 degrees of separation, if you will, that happens here. And certainly, as you mentioned, UPS being our largest employer in the area, it's just had a devastating, chilling effect. I know, my wife Caroline and I know several UPS pilots that we are good friends with. And of course, when we heard about this, we immediately were praying and fearful for their safety. Fortunately, our friends are okay. Unfortunately, though, one of the pilots that I am friends with, and Caroline is, did tell me that he used to fly that route, and he knew the crew members and had flown with them, So it was obviously very close and very personal for them.
Yeah. Well, Zach Scott, this has affected people that work at UPS, and there's a lot of young people that work out there. They work the third shift, or they work overnight to pay for their college education. And so this has got to be devastating and really tough for everybody out there today.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's completely tragic for the Louisville community. I mean, the broader Kentuckiana. I mean, I know in southern Indiana, people could see all the smoke from there. And as you had mentioned earlier on this show, that's the UPS Worldport. Like, that's UPS's global air shipping hub. And I just think it's so sad. I'm someone who, from a very young age was fond of aviation and flying, and I just think it's so sad what happened, the events that occurred yesterday, and it just completely took us by surprise, completely unexpected. My dad had mentioned that we had some pilot friends, and we were initially very worried about their safety, but glad to hear that they were not on that flight. But of course, they knew some of the crew members, so.
Louisville Metro Council member Betsy Rue, whose district includes the airport, said at a press conference last night that she said, "My heart goes out to everybody at UPS because this is a UPS town. We all know somebody who works at UPS, and they're all texting their friends, their family, trying to make sure everyone is safe. Sadly, some of those texts are probably going to go unanswered." Well, guys, one of our first thoughts as Christians when a tragedy like yesterday's crash at UPS Flight 2976 happens is, what can we do to help? And that should be our first thought. What can we do? I think we can pray. Bob Scott, we can pray for those involved. Yeah. And, the families of those who have lost loved ones there, those who are injured, those who are investigating, those who are leading the cleanup, those who are helping with the recovery efforts. There are still folks that haven't heard from their loved ones who are wondering if they're with us or gone. So we must pause and pray, and we need to pray for our city. This is a great opportunity, I think, for us as Christians to really show, our compassion and our love for the city, and our how we are standing with
Yeah.
UPS, with families grieving, with unimaginable loss, with first responders who are stretched thin, as we know, with neighbors who just need to know they're not alone. Um, but we need to do other things too. We need to pause and pray, but we also need to get up and walk. Get up and walk with those who are walking through this, those who are
Yes.
hurting, those who have been personally affected by this tragedy. Let's be cognizant of the mental, emotional toll this has taken on those who witnessed the tragedy, which there were many people who did, the responders who ran
Yeah.
toward danger, and the families left behind. Everybody involved. Let's pray. Let's pray for our city. And let's pray and stand with those who will need support long after the coverage fades and the headlines change to the next big story. And then let us act and give, guys. Let us act and give. We have an opportunity here to, as I said, to show our compassion, to show our love. As followers of Christ, we have a responsibility to love our city, to show compassion, to give. Christ did not call us to sit back and just feel sorry. He called us to serve, to give, to be his hands and feet. And so today is a chance, folks, for our faith to be louder than our fear and stronger than our sorrow. So, and you say, well, what can I do? How can I be involved? Well, you can give. You can give by texting the word STAND, 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 to 502-213-9543, 502-213-9543. Every dollar will help provide meals, water, clothing, and essentials through the Lord's kitchen, to those who are on the front lines, to families in need. The Lord's kitchen is going to be out there where there's going to be emergency responders, investigators, law enforcement, firefighters. This is going to be a ongoing process this week, no doubt. And this is your chance to give and help. Or you can drop off supplies. You can drop off some food, bottled water, hygiene kits, blankets at the WJIE studios, our sister station there at 6209 Taylorsville Road. Your gifts will go directly to those impacted by this tragedy. And guys, I know we have other things to get to here, but, let's ask everybody to be generous, right, Bob and Zach?
Yeah, no, now's the time. United we stand, divided we fall, for our motto, the state motto, to come forward. And that's one thing I am confident in, is Kentuckians always, always, always rise to the occasion. And now's the time. I don't care what political background you come from. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian. This is a time that our fellow man needs us. So it's important that we stand together. And again, WJIE, as you mentioned, Jim, our sister station, started it off this morning by immediately launching into prayer, and inviting people to call in and text in prayers for those that have been affected by this. And here's the deal. We're still counting. We don't know. So far, we know that there are 9 people confirmed, sadly, that have passed away. But as they continue to go through it, and everybody has seen the fireball. I mean, the inferno that happened. It was a fully loaded jet that just was. No other word I can use for it, but inferno. That was created, and there were several people over in those businesses where that jet came down at that are still unaccounted for.
Yeah, there's 16 people we believe that are unaccounted for, at least, and that number may rise as well. And if you want to share your thoughts about this, and maybe you witnessed this yesterday, maybe you have some connection to this that you want to express your concern about, text us at 502-571-0970. We'll share those on the air today as well.
Yeah, just to add to my dad's point, I was going to say, our state motto is united we stand, divided we fall. And this is not a time to focus on the political party or anything like that. Like, I believe Mayor Craig Greenberg is a Democrat, but we don't care that he's a Democrat. We wouldn't care if he's a Republican.
Yeah.
It's just a time of unity.
Well, right.
And all of us coming together.
And let me say, I thought the governor's tone last night at his press conference here was right. He has done exceptionally well in these situations in reducing the political considerations and increasing what we all care about, whether, as you said, whether we're Republican, Democrat, Independent. And, Mayor Greenberg, to his credit, I think, has also done the same and is seeking to work with the council members. The council members who spoke at last night's event were clearly emotional, moved by this, really concerned. And I think they're all Democrats. Who cares at this point? Really, it doesn't matter. As Christians, we are called to stand and pray and give and go and do. Let's figure out what we can do. Each one of us do something. It will make a difference. And we'll give you more information again. We'll give that information again on the Lord's Kitchen. Coming up, we are going to go to that press conference with Mayor Greenberg as soon as that begins. So now we're going to take a break. Stay with us. We are not going to break, okay? Well, very good. We're not going to break. All right, we're not. So anyhow, so while it could take up to 2 years, we know, before the National Transportation Safety Board issues an official cause of this horrific crash yesterday of the UPS Flight 2976. In fact, some flying experts are already giving us some insight into what was likely happening inside that plane and with those pilots. I want to share this first. We've got some clips from some experts, and we're going to use that. But I wanted to share this from Michael Ferris, who's the founder and CEO of Prime Hawks LLC. It's an aviation maintenance company in Elizabethtown, and they are experts in aviation repair of planes and of helicopters. And he said something on Facebook that I thought was insightful and gave us some insight into what was going on in that plane with those pilots. There were 3 crew members on board. But he said, I can't imagine what this crew was going through. He said they had 2 decisions, both of which they likely knew would result in their death. I firmly believe the crew noticed the engine lose power on takeoff, knowing they were way too heavy to land and stop the plane from plowing across the interstate and into the buildings on the other side. They tried their best to clear the buildings and get it airborne. This would have given them a little more time to figure out what they were going to do, but even a return to the field would have been challenging. That plane would likely have been MTOW with minimal options of landing this thing in any safe manner. He said it's a very bad time for an engine to go out under max power and barely off the ground, losing all the runway they once had in front of them. You can tell that number 2 engine was absolutely screaming by how hard it rolled into the engine that was inoperative. Even with limited options, the crew never gave up, a testament to their courage and bravery to minimize loss of life and property. God rest their souls. And I think we need to mention that in the mix with the heroics of the first responders, of the firefighters, those who ran toward the danger. Lots of heroism here last night and overnight, and it will continue. And we thank God for that, for their courage and for what they tried to do yesterday, in even knowing that their plane, that they probably were going to go down and they weren't going to make it. So now there are other experts who are giving us some interesting feeds online. And let's go now to Captain Steve. This is Captain Steve. If you're familiar with him on Facebook, he is an absolute expert. He's a retired Navy pilot who flew for 34 years as well, I think, in the commercial sector, maybe, Dan, I believe. But he explains and helps us understand better what's going on, or what happened, what did happen, what did go on yesterday. Do we have that first clip?
The early stages of the flight, the airplane taxis out. They're fully loaded up. They're about at max gross weight as they taxi out. They taxi onto runway 17. They're cleared for takeoff. The airplane then begins its long takeoff roll. And there's a phase in that takeoff roll that is in between what's called V1 and rotate. And that V1 speed is the decision speed. It's the go, no-go speed. In other words, If you lose an engine, you have a massive failure after V1. You can't stop that airplane in the remaining runway that you have. You must go airborne at that point. So I believe that the pilots were past V1, and I know that because the flight radar 24 information tells us that they went off the end of the runway at 184 knots. That's well above any rotate speed for an MD-11. So they're rolling down the runway. They've lifted the nose off the ground. The ADSB data says they went off the end of the runway at 140 knots and basically 150 feet of altitude. They're not that far off the runway. The nose of the aircraft, where the cockpit is, might be that far off the runway, but the wheels and the bottom of the airplane is much, much closer to the runway. Let me pick it up from here, and you're going to watch. It goes out of the frame just for a minute. It comes back in. There's a fireball. So they're rotating just now. They're trying to lift off, and here we go. They get a little bit of airborne. They go out of the shot. The shot comes back in, and boom. That's right past the blast fence at the end of the runway. They've just barely cleared that by inches. And then, and we'll show you a picture of the top of the first building that they hit. There's this rut down the first top of the building. That could have been the landing gear. It could have been the left wing.
That's Captain Steve. Fascinating information there about what happened. And, you know, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Bob and Zach Scott. And, you know, guys, and Zach, you know, I know you have a real interest in aviation and have and know more about it than I do even. But you know, if you just think about the quickness with which this happened, how rapid this was, and how quickly these pilots had to make these decisions, it's just. It's mind-boggling. They train for this, but you know, how can you ever really be prepared for something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe the pilot in that video had mentioned the local pilot. He'd mentioned flight radar, and I myself, I like to do some digging. So I went on flight radar. I found that exact flight 2976. Noticed it had made several trips back and forth to Honolulu, Louisville in the past week or so. Really, in the past like 2 weeks, and I think earlier you'd mentioned the MTO. That's the maximum takeoff weight. And clearly there was too much weight or something wrong with the engine. And that's what caused it to ultimately go down. And obviously we may not know because the NTSB is so thorough. We may not know for 2 years. But I mean, it's just so sad. I had some high school teachers that, you know, they worked for UPS when they were in college. And I wish everyone wishes this never happened, and it should not have happened. But as we know, accidents do occur, and we just need to be in prayer with the family, stand in solidarity with them. And yeah, I like the flight radar. I looked at that. It just, I don't know. It could have been the engine, but I'm not the expert either. But yeah, I'm someone who's very fond of aviation.
Right. You know, it's just you know, when you think about 38,000 gallons of fuel, you know, just that alone. I mean,
that massive fireball.
Yeah. And then striking a petroleum industry, you know, and just the combination of that is just horrific. And folks, we want you to help. This is our opportunity to help. If you'd like to help the first responders, those who are working on the scene, if you'd like to help some of the victims of this, the Lord's Kitchen is going to be on the front lines, and you can help support their efforts by texting the word STAND to 502-213-9543. I'm going to personally make a contribution to that today, and I hope everybody will and help out. This happened right here. This is in our city. This isn't something that happened around the world. This is right here, and certainly it's gotten a lot of coverage nationally. And you know, Bob Scott. You know, people go through that airport. I mean, this hits right close to where a lot of us have been and spent quite a bit of time in that airport. And, you know, we've all dropped off family members there to catch a flight. We've all been in that situation, and just the emotional toll of this on our community is terrific.
Yeah, and it really is, Jim.
It's horrific and, you know,
one
terrifically
of the things
bad.
we could take comfort in is Muhammad Ali International Airport is probably one of the safest airports you can fly into or fly out of.
Right. Right.
It sits on a very wide plain uh, area, if you will.
Mhm.
To me, in the videos that I've seen, I'm something happened to that engine.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
that
and I've
caused
been
it.
told that it's been over 50 years, like it was 1970 since their last was actually a crash at this airport. To your point about how safe this airport
Yeah,
is. And even UPS, it's been 12 years, I believe, since they had a crash, which was, I think, down in Alabama, of any
yeah.
kind of
It's
problem at all.
funny, and I'm glad you brought that up. I talked to Kentucky State Representative John Hodgson, who worked for UPS for 32 years. In fact, we're going to have him on the show tomorrow at 11. So I'll do a very quick plug for that. But he has very unique insight, Jim. I believe he told me this is the fourth fatal crash involving a UPS jet in their history. And again, it's a safe transport.
Well, considering too that they have 300 flights that a day here at
Yes,
their world.
that's correct.
300 flights a day.
And you
Yeah,
look
and you'd think by now, like there's so many flights going on. I know that plane had been commissioned, I believe, in 1991, and I think it originally had been delivered to an airline before 2006. Around '06 was when UPS bought it or
Yeah.
acquired it and converted it to a cargo
Mhm.
jetliner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah.
generally speaking, it's relatively safe flight. Even though just doing a quick internet search, I pulled up. I think there's been 11 or 12 crashes that I found, and it's again the McDonnell Douglas 11
Mhm.
MD
Mhm.
11 that has been involved in these crashes, and again they're primarily now used. And I know everybody has seen them. It's a very wide body jet, and that's why they like them. That can be used to haul a lot of different things, and again, it makes sense. Not just UPS, but also FedEx. I think in my search, I saw where it looked like at least two or three MD-11s in FedEx's history. Again, specifically the MD-11 have been involved in crashes as well. So just a tragic situation, and we need to continue to move forward and pray.
Right for our city, yeah.
Yeah,
It's the largest. I mean, the MD-11 is the largest tri-jet airliner in the world. You mentioned it being wide body. It's a very big plane, three engines. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's just really kind of mind-boggling that it even happened. And you'd think so many flights every day be a more often occurrence, but we're so happy that UPS is usually very safe, and this does not ever happen. So,
yeah, and it's a 30-year-old jet too, which I find interesting. A lot of people talk about that, the fact it's so old, but that's not uncommon.
yeah.
There
Right.
are a lot of jets, and the way somebody did explain to me though, obviously, like anything, like our bodies, the more in use, and you got that compression and decompression. When a
Mhm.
jet goes up into the upper stratosphere, if you will,
Mhm.
that starts to occurring, then that starts creating fatigue on the actual overall body of the plane. But does that mean it's going to be unsafe? Absolutely not. It's
Yeah.
just again, wear and tear happens, and as you said earlier in the program, Jim, it's going to probably be a while before we know the exact cause of it. I
Mhm.
personally am suspecting some kind of engine um,
Engine failure.
Mhm.
failure, something catastrophic, obviously, that happened. It's what all the videos I've seen seem to be pointing in that direction.
Well, there's been some speculation, but I don't want to get too much into that. But, there are things that can happen to an engine on an airplane. We've heard of those in the past. Birds can get caught in there and different things. So we're not sure.
Solely.
Uh, I guess, and there was a lot of weight on that plane. Like you said, as Zach, with the maximum takeoff weight there, it was almost apparently around 80,000 pounds of cargo and
Yeah.
220,000 pounds of fuel, 38,000 gallons. Just mind boggling, guys. It's just, and let's go back to Captain Steve. because I know he talked about how there's a big difference in taking off with a plane loaded with fuel versus one coming in, and ending a flight. That usually that's a much less combustible situation, if you will. But anyhow, he had some more insight on what happened yesterday. Let's go to Captain Steve.
But in a situation like this, where the engine on the left side has completely departed and you got full power on the right side, it's going to be so dramatic. It's going to be very, very difficult to keep that nose from coming all the way around to the left. So it does make sense that left wing or that left main mount gear would dig into that building as it was coming down into it. As it did that, the airplane kept rolling over. And as it rolled over on that knife edge, as you saw in the last video, they just kind of plowed right in, and they just kept going with all of that momentum. There have been reports now I've listened to on several news agencies. Reuters was reporting that they hit a fuel farm or a fuel tank off the end of the runway, and that's why that huge big ball and why the fire continued for as long as it did. I'm here to tell you that 34,000 gallons of gas is about three times as much gas as the airplanes that hit the World Trade Center had.
All right, we're going to thank you. We're going to cut now to Governor Andy Beshear, rather, for the latest on this, and he's got an update. Go ahead.
Takes the perfect pathway, snow showers would be likely. It's possible now, but they could be likely if that low is right on top of us Sunday night.
Fairdale, Anchorage, Middletown, Jeffersontown.
When the power goes out, Corrigan Electric.
Mount Washington, Nichols, Lebanon Junction, Southeast Bullitt, LaGrange, Simpsonville, Lexington Fire Department, Bardstown, and Shepherdsville Fire Department. In addition, extra foam to fight the fire came from the Lexington Airport, from CVG, and from Bardstown. In total, over 50 trucks responded. Again, a surge of resources to respond to a very significant explosion and fire. But what that does is it means that all of those available resources are pushed to the site. But through careful planning and through more efforts, we made sure we backfilled the departments that were at the scene. So we want to thank the following fire departments for backfilling to make sure that everyone else was protected during the surge of resources. We want to thank the Vine Grove Fire Department, West Point, Simpsonville, Shelby County. I want to thank other first responders that include the Kentucky National Guard, Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, Louisville EMA, the Airport Police Department, Louisville Metro Police Department, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, St. Matthews Police Department, Shively Police Department, Kentucky State Police, Louisville Metro EMS, the Metro Sewer District, Louisville Gas and Electric, Kentucky Emergency Management, Kentucky Emergency Management Urban Search and Rescue Task Force 1, Kentucky ERT, the Jefferson County Emergency Management, the Jefferson County Coroner, the National Weather Service, the FBI, and there are more. There have been over 200 first responders that were on the scene last night, and there is a significant amount of resources in the search and rescue, and ultimately what is probably by now the recovery effort that is occurring. I want to thank everybody who was working overnight.
I didn't know if we could talk.
When it was dangerous. When there was
so
flammable
anything from the mayors
materials,
yet? Anything?
But they were searching to try to find.
Are there people there waiting, or?
And to locate any bodies to try to give families the closure that they deserve. As of this time, we can confirm that there have been 9 fatalities, but I'm now fairly confident that that number will grow by at least 1. We hope it doesn't grow by too many more. I believe by this afternoon we'll have a pretty good grasp of both the number of fatalities and, if there are any, the number of missing persons that we're still looking for. Remember, there's a Victim Family Reunification Center at the Louisville Metro Police Training Academy, which remains open. That address is 2911 Taylor Boulevard. As of last night, there had been 16 different families there. I think the mayor's providing an update where that number may now have shrank. At least information I'm getting is those families may not line up with the hospital patients, which means we've got to continue to search that site hope and pray for the best, but know there may be more loss of life that we're going to learn about today. 2 businesses were directly impacted: Kentucky Petroleum Recycling and Grade A Auto Parts. Thankfully, a local restaurant that is right there that we had great concern would be impacted and we would lose whoever was in it, was missed and now is helping the search and rescue. We're grateful for them. Another blessing is this plane could have potentially hit the major Ford factory or the convention center. Those are all close by and did not. The radius for the shelter in place has been significantly reduced. Louisville Metro is putting out guidance to residents and businesses immediately around the crash site to not consume water. EEC, the Energy and Environment Cabinet, is working closely with the city on this. Other areas are safe. Now, if you are in the suburbs, if you're in other parts of Louisville, you are as safe today as you've been any other day. The air is fine, your water is fine, but that immediately around the crash site, we're just trying to be very careful. In new news today, following yesterday's events, I'm declaring a state of emergency to help us deal with this plane crash. It allows us to move resources more quickly through emergency management and the Kentucky National Guard. It allows state resources to be used also through our agencies to be readily available, including disaster resource management, expenses related to response, and more, as well as reimbursement. It's going to help to make sure that groups that are already limited in terms of their funding can get some immediate or short-term help as they wait for reimbursement for the costs that they've expended. Additionally, I've taken action to establish the Team Kentucky Emergency Relief Fund to help those affected by this terrible event. The URL for this site is going to be on the screen. Similar to previous storm disaster funds, every dollar donated will go directly to those affected. In fact, what we've done is we've gone and amended the Team Kentucky Storm Relief Fund to now allow families impacted by a disaster like this to also benefit from the generosity of Kentuckians. Remember, the first thing that we pay for out of these funds are funerals, so that in a time of grief, nobody is worried about that. In Kentucky, we grieve together and we support one another. Donations will help pay for funerals and for response, recovery, and rebuilding. All right, while Kentucky is responding to this crisis in Louisville following yesterday's deadly plane crash, we must also remember the challenges that our families are facing due to a lack of SNAP benefits brought on by the Trump administration. This is a program that was under attack early by the president following the big
let's bring it back
bill.
here.
That's why in June I wrote a letter to Kentucky's congressional delegation urging them to consider the harmful impacts
you heard
of
Governor
this legislation
Andy Beshear there talking about setting up a fund to help victims using the disaster relief funds that had been available for the tornado and flooding, disasters that Kentuckians faced previously, allowing those accounts now to be used to collect funds to help folks impacted by this disaster and by others that hopefully we won't experience, but we could. And having that set up, I think, is a good idea. And he said the first thing that will be paid for out of those funds are funerals. And so we are covering today on Kentucky's Voice. This is Kentucky's Voice. We are covering the crash of UPS Flight 2976. It happened yesterday afternoon, about 5:15, just west of the I-65 at the Louisville Airport, the UPS World Hub there, and in just south of the airport, businesses affected. People lost their lives. The plane, a big plane, a very large plane, crashed, burst into flames, as you can see, and skidded through an area there, an industrial area, and caught some businesses. Others were thankfully spared, but you can see how horrific that was, just getting a taste of that from the video, or a sense of that from the video. And we want to hear from you. If you were impacted by this, if you had family members impacted, you have thoughts about this, you want to share thoughts of compassion or condolence, you can text us at 502-571-0970. This off of our Kentucky's Voice text line. This texter is encouraging people. He said, I'm encouraging people to ignore the conspiracy theories of bombs on board the UPS plane. This is not a time for hyper drama. And I want to go back to our co-hosts, Bob and Zach Scott. And guys, Bob, I think that's a good point to be made here. I know there's always this, especially in the environment that we have with social media and sort of the immediacy of being able to speak to people and say things. Sometimes there was speculation. I saw one text that said that this plane had hit the Ford plant yesterday. That turned out not to be true. So I think it behooves us to be sure we're getting the right information here too.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. And we know that in situations like this, and especially with the advent of social media, all kinds of wild conspiracy theories. Sometimes those conspiracy theories turn out to be true. We know that. Mm-hmm. But now's not the time for speculation. Now's the time for healing. Now's not the time for attempting to cast blame on a particular party or individual. And I'll leave it at that for now because I want to keep the show upbeat, as the governor was trying to do, and was telling a lot of half-truths with regard to that. I will say this. I'm glad that he's out there on the forefront of this. That's something that Andy Bashir's been very good at. You said it earlier in the show, as far as getting out and covering, whether it be tornadoes or floods. He's been remarkable in that event. But yeah. I don't want this to go political.
Yeah, this does not need to be politicized. And just to add to what Jim said and what my dad said, this is not a time for conspiratorial thinking. We don't need to be making assumptions or,
Zach, it's like some people can't help that. It's like they just can't help doing
they just resort straight to that. And we should not be doing that. We should be focusing on the victims, their families. Clearly, that was some sort of engine or sort of like mechanical failure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That I do not think that there was any domestic or foreign terrorism involved. I think we need to cut that out and just pray for the families right now and grieve in this time of loss, this great time of loss.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, and the governor made this point last night, I think rightfully so, that while there has been loss of life and there's been this has been a tragedy, that had that plane been taking off, say, in the opposite direction, this could have been just so much worse. And
and we did get another text in that kind of builds upon what I was alluding to a little bit earlier, and the person texted in and said, "What a significant liar about Trump causing the shutdown during this tragic time."
And we're not gonna stand for that nonsense no matter what happens here. And I would advise the governor to keep the politics out of this. He's done a good job of doing that so far, but he's tempted, I'm sure, with his ambition to rise. He has political ambitions. Nothing wrong with that in and of itself, but this is not the time or the place for it. And the government shut down here. In fact, there was confirmation last night that did not affect the response to this tragedy. That was made clear last night in the press conferences that were held both by the governor and the mayor. In fact, among other experts who were there speaking on this, for example, the emergency management personnel folks, they are all hands on deck. In fact, they were so well organized that when these fire departments responded directly to the crash scene last night, that there were other fire departments that then backed them up in their communities in case there was a need to fight fire in those communities. Incredible. I know the Vine Grove Fire Department even was involved last night, as well as other Bullitt County and other fire departments who were also prepared because, even though this was the major event, they were prepared for other events that may have happened. So, and then we heard a lot of that. But also, it was confirmed that this government shutdown did not affect the response to this tragedy and has really nothing at all to do with it. And I think it's inappropriate to even begin talking about SNAP benefits at a press conference like this. The governor can save that for his Thursday infomercial, as far as I'm concerned, and where he doesn't get asked any hard questions by the press. But that's, of course, why we're here, and we're not going to get into all that today. But just a word there on that. So, But Daniel, I know we had another clip from Captain Steve. You know, I know the meteorologists here last night in the coverage were talking about, they were talking about how the plume of smoke, and I know even when I just walked outside the station here, the sky was almost dark, and they were talking about how that actually showed up on radar. Now, if you think about that, folks, that's pretty amazing. That has to be pretty thick and pretty heavy smoke to show up on radar. Truly, and with, of course, we said 38,000 gallons of fuel, but not only that, they also involved was what's known as a petroleum recycling facility, and another recycling facility where there were combustible elements there, combustible items, if you will, and chemicals, and there was concern about the environment, but I think that's well been addressed by now, Bob Scott.
Yeah, you know, when you take in everything that happened, obviously to date, 9 lives have been lost, which is awful, and I suspect the governor was talking about that there will be at least one more. I would not be surprised if there's not several more. But considering all of that and the absolute inferno that crash created, it's in many respects a minor miracle that more lives weren't lost. In fact, one of my pilot UPS friends told us that had that plane, which planes will take off at an airport depending on the weather, the wind, that's going on.
All the conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all based upon the conditions. And this just happened to be, it was a south departure out of the airport where it is less populated, less traffic, less businesses, if you will, even though there was enough there. But it's nothing like, he said, and he told me this, you know, had it gone north, which they often will take off to the north, we would be sitting here looking at a much deeper tragedy than what we're seeing here today.
Yeah, and Daniel, I was listening in my ear. We do have another clip from Captain Steve. Is that right? Okay, let's go back to Captain Steve and hear more about his take on what happened yesterday. I think it's pretty interesting.
Most critical phase of flight. The most critical phase of flight is the takeoff phase. Why is that? Because in the takeoff phase, you're the heaviest you're ever going to be. You got the most fuel on board that you're ever going to have. You're the slowest that you're ever going to go, and you're fully configured. And most importantly, you've got almost all of your power all the way up. So when you're landing, you're much lighter, you have much less fuel, and your power is pulled all the way back. So if you need to go around, you got all that power you can bring on to fly out of whatever situation you find yourself in. Not the same on a takeoff. So these guys are going down the runway. Something happens between V1 and rotate speed, and it's catastrophic. I have never seen an uncontained fire on an engine like this. Now, there's a video I'm going to show you here right now that is a picture of an engine sitting off of the runway. I've been told that it's the #1 engine off of this MD-11. It's not verified. None of the news services have reported that yet. So I don't want to get out over my skis on this because it could have been photoshopped. But if the left engine did fall off of this aircraft, it would explain a lot.
And just, I mean, guys, you look at that engine laying there. I mean, and there were other eyewitnesses who said they saw the engine separate from the plane. So,
yeah, wow.
And when you only have 3, right, and you have a MTOW, like you said, maximum weight there, pretty dramatic stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Again, I'll go back to what I was saying before we went to the clip. it's a miracle that more lives weren't lost, in what happened yesterday. It could have been far greater, and I do believe it was some kind of massive engine failure on the V1 engine.
Yep.
And if it did, obviously, if it did, it separated somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because of the crash, or if it fell off right before they crashed. But if that is the engine, then obviously that is a catastrophic situation. With combining that with the weight of the cargo, the weight of the fuel. The maximum, almost maximum velocity that they were rolling at to try to get off the ground. I mean, I'll be frank with you. When I'm flying, the part I'm always most concerned about is the takeoff.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, we mentioned multiple times in this show today. There's so many conditions when you're flying, and in aviation, you don't only have maximum takeoff weight, you have maximum landing weight. And all of these conditions have to be tuned just right for the whole flight to go smoothly. And if it's not, then there could potentially be something as catastrophic as what happened yesterday evening.
Yeah, and there's about a 2 or 3 second decision making opportunity there. That's all. That's it. And to the point we heard earlier from Michael Ferris, which I think is interesting. These pilots, he thinks we're trying to get that airborne, not just to avoid any potential loss of life. And as we've said and acknowledged, it could have been so much worse. Folks, this is an opportunity that we don't have every day, and that is to do something substantial, right, guys? I mean, this is an opportunity to help directly today our fellow Kentuckians, our fellow Louisvillians, and Kentucky's Voice. We are committed to doing that, and we want to give you an opportunity to do that today. Would you help today? Would you help the Lord's Kitchen take food and meals and water and clothing and essentials and do it through the Lord's Kitchen? And you can do that. You say, well, how do I do that? You can do that without moving from where you are right now. You can simply pick up your phone and text the word STAND, 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 to 502-213-9543. Every dollar that's given will help provide meals, clothing, water, essentials, and that's going to go directly to those who are on the front lines and to those families who are in need. Think about when something like this happens, how your life would be totally interrupted, how and if you're waiting to hear from somebody, the stress of that, the toll of that is difficult. It's tough enough, right? Without wondering where your next meal is going to come from. But you can help. You can help today. Help somebody, show the love of Christ, show the compassion of the Lord today. And you can do it by texting STAND, STAND, to 502-213-9543. And there's another way you can help out as well. You can drop off supplies. We're looking for food, bottled water, hygiene kits, and blankets at the WJIE studios, our sister station over on Taylorsville Road, 6209 Taylorsville Road, just right near the Waterston Expressway there. Your gifts will go directly to those impacted by this tragedy. We hear a lot, and rightfully so, about thoughts and prayers, but let's not just be thinking and praying. Let's also be doing, and let's allow those prayers and the response to that, let's allow that to get us up, if you will, to act and to help. And we certainly will be here. And, we need to remember the families involved. There are, from what the governor said, it seems like that at least there were 16 people missing, and they had 16 families at the family center where they had set up to minister and work with families there that were wondering about lost loved ones, possibly, or missing loved ones. So we need to remember them, especially today. You can only imagine being in a situation where you had a family member and you haven't heard from them, and you knew maybe they were in that area, maybe they were at a business there, maybe they were traveling through there for some reason. I was in that very area, guys, the day before this happened on Monday. I was trying to avoid some traffic on I-65, an accident there to get on the Gene Snyder. Thought, well, I'll go around, and I was actually there on Grade Lane in that area right the day before this happened. So and that's something else, we never know when we're going to be in that situation either, right? And we're going to need some help. So this is your chance. Bob Scott, is it okay if I say pay it forward? Zach, is it okay if I say pay it forward here? Give it forward. We'll say give it forward. Give it forward.
Well, it's a chance to put some, as they say, feet to your prayers,
Yeah.
And make a difference. And, every little bit makes a difference.
Yeah.
With
whether it's $1, $100, $10, $1,000, as my dad said, every gift makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, any closing thoughts here? And Dan, I assume we're going to end at our regular time. Is that correct? Yes, we are. Okay. Unless the mayor comes on. Okay, so we have been waiting, by the way. We were expecting a press conference to happen during this hour sometime. It has not yet happened, and I'm sure we're going to be getting more information throughout the day. And I know, Bob Scott, you and Tom Fallbush will be hosting the program tomorrow. You'll have John Hodgson on, and perhaps he'll be able also, I'm sure, to have some more information. Yeah,
John's, as we know, a very bright guy, and as I mentioned, Kentucky State legislator,
Representative Hodgson, right?
Yeah, Representative.
Yeah.
36 years. I'm thinking. No, maybe it was 32 years that he worked for UPS, and he let me know this morning when I spoke with him very briefly that he had, and he would have come on today's show had it not been for another commitment, but that he had worked the 3 previous crashes that UPS was involved with to this one. So he has significant amount of understanding and knowledge with regard to these kind of situations. So I think when we have a chance to unpack this a little bit more tomorrow, we'll be able to take a deeper dive into that. So I really do want to invite people that are listening in or watching right now to tune in tomorrow when Representative Hodgson will be on. He'll be on the first 15 minutes of the program, so you don't want to come in late. Try to get there early.
Exactly right, and we're thankful for you, Bob Scott. Zach Scott, any closing thoughts? What are your friends saying? What are you hearing on social media? What's dominating the conversation here?
Yeah, I used to work at the local amusement park in Kentucky Kingdom, and so I have some friends. I know the rides manager there. And, you had mentioned that you're just 3 miles away. The station's 3 miles away from the crash site. And they're literally like probably less than a mile. They're right across the street. You can see the big Ferris wheel when you're coming into Louisville.
Yep.
And I just know that my friend was not there, but he knows, me and him both know someone, the manager there. And they could obviously see that huge plume of smoke that was just basically making the sky black or almost black, which is crazy. But I think I just want to focus. We need to be lifting up all the families in prayer. If anybody can give, text stand STAND to 502-213-9543.
Yes, that number once again, 502-213-9543, or you can drop off supplies at our sister station, the great WJIE, where Jesus is exalted, 6209 Taylorsville Road. Your gifts will go directly to those impacted by this tragedy. Let's pray, let's act, let's give, let's do, let's be the hands and feet of the Lord today. This is our opportunity. Thank you for joining us today here on Kentucky's Voice. We'll continue to reach out and pray and help those in need. And thank you. God bless. Have a good day.